On behalf of Pur-Logic Solutions, I would like to thank everyone that was able to join us for today's webinar showcasing Cloud at Work as part of our Get More from Your Sage software series. We are recording today's webinar and we will have it posted on our website as well as our YouTube channel, and we will be emailing you all a copy following today's event. We will also be making some time for some Q&A at the end of the demo, so please enter those in the chat or Q&A box and we will do our best to answer them. I'll send it over now to Tyler from Cloud at Work.
Thanks, Angela. Thank you, everyone, for your time this afternoon. Today, I'd like to talk to you about some cloud migration trends in 2022 that I feel are going to trickle into 2023 and possibly even 2024. So as customers of Sage, as you begin to look at your journey to the cloud or your digital transformation, I believe it's going to be important to understand these for yourself. And just be aware of them as you make decisions regarding your IT infrastructure as well as technology for the future. As Angela mentioned, the presentation will be roughly about an hour, but I promise I won't PowerPoint everyone to death. Usually this presentation lasts about a half hour, 35 minutes. But at the end, if you have questions, please type them into the bottom. I would love to dialogue back and forth with you on any concerns or questions that you have. My name is Tyler Bauer. I'm the Director of Cloud and Hosting Services at Cloud at Work, and I helped start the company back in 2017. So what I thought we could do is just dive into who Cloud at Work is, really let you know what it is that we do differently, and then dive into some of the trends that we spoke about. So at Cloud at Work, we were founded in 2017. And we were founded exclusively to deliver two things: the absolute best experience for Sage end users and Sage partners. And we sought out to do that by combining enterprise cloud capability and as well what we call Sage Nuance or Sage Experience. Now, when I looked at the industry back in 2017, there were a lot of enterprise cloud organizations out there. They were focused on things like cybersecurity, availability, and redundancy. However, they didn't know, and it didn't seem like they cared to know the applications their customers were running on their IT infrastructure. What that led to is finger pointing and layers, which we'll talk about in a minute. The second was there was a lot of Sage specific hosting companies out there, but from what I saw, they were cutting corners on the technology side of things. So availability, security, and redundancy weren't priorities. They were mainly focused on being and knowledgeable on Sage and just getting it to the cloud. What that led to is outages for customers and putting customers, as some of these trends and pressures that we're about to talk about, put customers in a precarious situation. So that's what we do. We combine enterprise cloud experience with that Sage application nuance and work exclusively through Sage business partners to deliver that exceptional experience. Now, the easiest way to describe what makes us different and describe, kind of our company mantra is to really discuss layers. So put yourself in a situation, maybe some of you are already in the cloud or doing something like this, but when you talk about moving to the cloud, everyone thinks of either one of two companies, and that's Amazon, AWS, or Microsoft Azure. What happens in this scenario, even though they're the two largest companies in the world, what happens is people forget that AWS and Azure are in the business of automation, of commodity, of taking infrastructure and making it easier to consume. They're, however, not in the business of managing it, securing it, deploying it, and certainly not in the business of answering our questions if we call. If any of you have ever tried to call Microsoft or Amazon support, it's a long wait line, put it that way. So what most customers do is they enable these cloud platforms through what we call a cloud management company, which is kind of managed service company 2.0. Now, these companies are there to help their customers navigate through the waters of provisioning and automation and AI, as well as looking at security and redundancies, backups, DR, those types of things. However, that does introduce a second layer. The cloud management company is not anyway directly usually affiliated with AWS or Azure. They're usually working through a third party or a distributor to get those licenses or those resources. And certainly that cloud management company is not aware usually of the software that's residing. In this case, it's Sage. Now, Sage is fantastic, and I've been working with Sage end users and Sage partners for almost 12 years. However, one thing that I think makes Sage so great and poised for such a great future is not Sage itself, but all of the channel partners and third parties and ISVs that live around it. And what it's created is really an ecosystem where customers can kind of pick and choose which types of solutions or which types of third parties or integrations will work best for their business. And there's not a single choice. So in most cases, it's not just Sage. There could be Avalara, there could be DocLink, there could be a multitude of other solutions that maybe you're using. Now, who brings that all together for you and ties that through your business process is your business partner. So Pur-Logic certainly is there to help navigate those waters of business process and bringing all of those application solutions back through to you, the customer, to consume in one pane of glass. And then you have yourself, the customer. Now, in this model, it looks like we've checked every single box. It looks like every layer within our cloud experience of Sage is handled. However, this model is disconnected. It may not look like it, but it is. And so if you, the customer, would raise your hand and say, I'm having a problem, I don't know who to call, you would have to choose whether you call your business partner, you call Sage, you call your cloud management company, or you can attempt to call AWS or Azure. But let's pretend you called your cloud management company. And you know what? The problem resided within that cloud management company, and they solved it right away under their SLAs, responded fantastic, everyone's super nice, and your problem got solved. However, the next time, maybe it isn't an infrastructure problem, but maybe it's an application issue. Maybe it's something with the logs within the database. You know, maybe it's something with an integration not working appropriately. And you call that cloud management company. Well, what's going to happen is that cloud management company is going to check their boxes, and eventually they're going to work towards the solution of, hey, this probably isn't our problem. And that's going to put that back on you, the client, and then you're going to call your business partner, and your business partner will work through that. But maybe there needs to be a collaboration between the infrastructure and the application to solve the root problem. And that idea is where Cloud at Work fits in to solve a problem. It's not that you can't deliver Sage on a cloud anywhere else but Cloud at Work. However, this model at its truest form is inconsistent. And that, to me, in talking with CEOs and CIOs today, is the biggest challenge that they're looking to solve, is how do we simplify consumption of applications in the cloud? And how do we make it streamlined so we can get consistent SLAs and consistent variables around uptime and troubleshooting, so we can focus on operating our business, not worrying about tying vendors together based on our decisions. And that's what Cloud at Work solves. Cloud at Work is integrated directly with Pur-Logic to deliver that end-to-end cloud and application experience. We're experts at triaging and delineating between whether it's a cloud infrastructure issue or an application issue. And if it is an application issue, we're not going to lob it back over to you, the client. We're going to work with our integrated relationship with Pur-Logic to solve the problem together for you, the client. And that's what makes us great. Now, that's what differentiates us, and this is what sets us apart. As far as Cloud at Work is concerned, we are 100% a virtual private environment. What that means is we isolate our customers one from the other. There's not one common thread tying another customer to another. There's no multi-tenancy. Everything is 100% dedicated to you. You're on your own firewall. You're on your own virtual network. You are completely isolated from everyone else. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important for many reasons around cybersecurity, as well as redundancy. As well, it allows for complete flexibility in your environment to do what you want it to do, and not us point it back to you to do some of those, to tell you, no, you can't do it, you have to do it this way. But the cybersecurity factor is, in my opinion, the biggest, because if one customer is operating a certain way, that has no effect on your environment. If one customer clicks on a link maybe they shouldn't have and introduces some sort of threat to their environment, that threat is not going to trickle out or trickle over any type of connection to you or any of our other customers. We are 100% taking the long approach and the right approach to delivering cloud solution, and we are not cutting any corners along the way. That's really been our MO since the beginning, and in my opinion, one of the main reasons why Sage has decided to accredit Cloud at Work in Sage 100, Sage 300, Sage X3, and we are the only ones in North America who have all three of those. So what we deliver is a 99.99% uptime guarantee. If you compare that to other cloud providers, you'll find that that's extremely high by itself. Now, what that equates to is about 52 minutes of unscheduled downtime per year. And that's what we guarantee to our customers in our contracts. What we actually perform at is 6 nines. For the last 3.5 years, we've had sub 30-second downtimes, which is I'm extremely happy with from our team. These are a live look at 2 of our data centers. We actually just opened a 3rd in Toronto. If you haven't seen that, there is a press release on our social media, and it's at the Cloud at Work. But these 2 facilities are Tier 4 facilities in both Philadelphia and Dallas. We do not own these facilities. We use a partner to give us the brick and mortar and the power, but all of the technology inside of these data centers we operate, control, and manage for our customers. Obviously, everything we deliver is 24/7, and in my opinion, one of the best things about Cloud at Work is we have no red tape. If you have a customization, you have a third party, you have an integration, or you wanted to bring your entire production environment to the cloud, we can custom build our cloud environment, or I should say your cloud environment, to you for today and help scale that for you in the future. Now let's talk about how we keep you safe. So aside from our core architecture of isolation, we take hourly snapshots, so basically like an hourly picture, and we keep that in a separate place on a separate network. Why that's important is because if your production network is impacted, now you have data and backups residing in a separate place or a separate network. So every single hour on a rolling scale for 48 hours, we can go back 48 hours at any given time, we take that snapshot. Then we take daily backups. So every single day, we're going to take a backup and we're going to hold that backup for on a 30-day rolling scale. Now, not only is this daily backup in a separate network, basically a separate place, but it's also in a separate geo-redundant facility. So if your production data center is Philadelphia, your 30-day backups will be in Dallas and vice versa. So what you get out of the box, every single customer, no matter if you're paying $1 or $1 million, you have these base redundancies in place. And we're extremely proud of that. It gives customers a breath of fresh air to feel a little bit comfortable or a little less vulnerable in today's crazy market, and basically says out of the box, if you're going to get into a precarious situation, the only way to make you vulnerable is to have a threat impact 3 separate networks on 3 separate locations at the exact same time. Is it impossible? No. Is it highly unlikely? Yes. Now, if that's not good enough, which a lot of our customers, we need additional redundancies or capabilities, we can add in things like multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, different types of authentication and user access methods. But also we can layer on a true enterprise disaster recovery policy. And yes, we write those policies specific to you, the customer. We do tests yearly, and if you need more tests, we can actually accommodate that as well. Now, what that includes is a 4-hour recovery time objective and a 1-hour recovery point objective. And this sits on top of all of the backup redundancies that we already provide in our base package. This is just another layer to prove and to show customers that we take the extra step when it comes to hosting Sage applications. So with all of that said, that's who Cloud at Work is. Let's get into some trends and really start to think about kind of where we're at. So quickly, let's just recap where technology is today. we're obviously using remote connectivity more than ever. I don't know about your business, but within our business, we have no offices at Cloud at Work. We are 100% a remote operation. We have employees all over the country. As well, for a lot of our customers, we've seen more of this hybrid approach where some employees are going into the office and some are staying remote. And everyone's okay with that, but technology needs to keep up. Now, with that change in behavior, we still want everything to happen faster. And applications and developers, as well as younger generations, have that instant gratification in hand. So we need to prepare technology for that as well. There's more data, more data. If you look back 3 years ago, we're transferring more data over the internet than ever before. And we're doing it not necessarily from high-powered computers anymore. We're doing it mainly through mobile devices. As well, our new office or our new water cooler is now Teams or Zoom in most cases. This takes a different type of culture, a different type of way of delivering that we need to be prepared for as an IT organization. On-demand results are not going away. It's only going to increase. And as well, our apps are becoming more and more powerful. Now, all of those trends are increasing. These are how we're consuming IT, and they're not going to slow down. There's nothing we can do. However, what happens when they just stop working or they're just not good enough? It results in absolute chaos. And I think we've all been there, right? Where employees are frustrated, customers are frustrated, folks are overworking themselves, maybe working weekends or nights to get jobs done. And all the while, we're looking up at the top layer of our technology rather than at the foundation at which we build it on. So the first challenge that we're going to talk about that exists today, and this is mainly going to be focused around IT infrastructure, is supply chain. So the IT infrastructure industry is not immune to the supply chain challenges, but I don't think that folks understand how impactful it is, because most companies are on a 3 to 4, maybe even 5-year cycles in buying hardware. Right now, Cloud at Work, we spend roughly $2 to $3 million per year on IT infrastructure. We work with the largest distributors in the world and as well the largest manufacturers in the world. And for certain pieces of equipment, we have 6 to 8 month lead times. I've actually been told this is going to not get better anytime soon, but this is going to increase. So a company like us who's spending significant amounts of money on IT infrastructure, we need to wait 6 to 8 months. Now, for me, running the business, that's not a tall task, because the only thing that we provide is IT infrastructure, is cloud infrastructure. So it just changes my procurement. It changes the way I purchase. However, if you're manufacturing widgets or distributing widgets, this is obviously a tall task to manage. As well, our IT infrastructure is built on redundancy, availability, security. Most legacy on-premise environments are not built with that in mind. There are single points of failure. There is possibly a methodology of setting it and forgetting it. And these types of behaviors in the near future, if they're not impacting already, are not going to be accessible. They're just not going to be optional. Think about buying hardware today, and you spend $100,000, $200,000 on IT infrastructure, and you refresh everything. But you use the same architecture you used 5 years ago. And the reason for that is because the guy 20 minutes away always kept spare parts, kept spare gear, just in case something went wrong. Well, now there is no spare parts. There are no spare gear. So you don't have anything to replace it with. So you have choices, and we'll get into that in a minute. The second follow-up to that is, what does that mean for us? So it's going to take 12 to 18 months to get a new one. If we want to go to the secondary market to buy it, the secondary market is inflated by about 30 to 60%. We can't bend on the employee experience. It's not an option. Technology is and the usability of it is going to continue to increase. And if we're in this precarious situation, either through a security event or a breakage that we can't replace, we're going to snap react by going to the cloud market without understanding what it is we actually need from that cloud market. It'll be in a sense of panic rather than in a sense of proactiveness. And that's the theme of what I want to get across. This isn't meant to scare anybody or to prompt anybody to come to the cloud tomorrow. It's simply to understand that maybe certain behaviors that were okay 10 years ago aren't okay today. And we don't want to be in a vulnerable position. We don't want to be in a reactive stance. So we always want to be productive. Now, there's 3 steps that we can take to solve the supply chain problem. We can buy more stuff. We can invest heavily into disaster recovery. So if something breaks or if we get a security event, we can replicate it to the second environment, or we can just migrate to the cloud today. The first option would be buy more stuff. So as I mentioned, I don't think these lead times are going anywhere anytime soon. I actually think they're going to get a little worse. So we'll need to manage those purchase lead times efficiently for an extended period of time. As well, we'll need to buy more so we can fill those single points of gaps and as well create redundancy maybe where we didn't value it before. Now, not only that, but it's going to be a little bit more expensive because of inflation, and we need to account for that. And we'll need to manage it and secure it as those security pressures, which we'll talk about in a minute, as well as inflation and supply chain, as those pressures continue to grow, not turn around and go backwards. We're going to have to continue to keep up with these technology trends, and we'll be staying in that business in this model. In the second model, which would be disaster recovery, this would definitely be an option to maybe band-aid it, or to say, you know what, we're going to stay with the model we have, it works, but we're just going to get an extra layer of redundancy in case we need something. Now, most folks that I talk to, they either have some sort of data device or an infrascale device, some type of device that resides in their office, and their current IT infrastructure replicates to that box, and that box then replicates to the cloud. And in their mind, they think that this is going to work in a situation where they need it. It may work. It may work for your business. However, these types of cloud deployment models are not built for extended periods of time. For instance, if it takes 6 months or 8 months to get your replacement gear, I don't think you're going to find the experience in these types of cloud environments really pleasurable or productive for your business. These are built to essentially just keep lights on. So I would recommend testing. Certainly, if you're working with a managed service provider today, test it for yourself, see if your business can sustain, and figure out what those cost exposures would be if you had to sustain for a period of time. A lot of the infrastructure that's available in these options is available in the service for maybe a week or maybe a couple of days, but certainly not months. So you may have some cost exposure there as well. Now, you could build this secondary environment in AWS or Azure, but again, you begin to introduce layers there because you'll probably need to institute a management company there, which, you know, cost ROI would be completely your call at that point. Or we could buy more stuff and put it into a data center like Cloud at Work is doing in a colo facility, but then we're juggling steps 1 and 2. Either way, you need to make sure for yourself that in this scenario that you will have the redundancies that you're looking for, the uptimes that you're looking for, and that you'll have a sustainable platform to run on if for some unknown reason your regular deployment fails. Or you can look at cloud computing. Cloud computing in general, this is in a general stance, this isn't a commercial for Cloud at Work. Cloud is built with scalable resources. So meaning you have resources to the nth degree. Typically, you're going to have better security capabilities in a cloud than what you have typically locally. As well, you'll have better redundancies built in within the cloud typically. You should see enhanced performance because you should be running on higher performing disk. You should be able to flex and monitor the different types of RAM and usage. And as well, you're not buying any more stuff. You're out of that business altogether. You're letting that service provider that you choose really manage the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys of the supply chain, of the security, of all those different components. The second point, piggybacking onto supply chain, is that the office is almost gone, and we touched on it a little bit, but as employees are working more and more from home, technology is being hit harder and harder. There is no more getting up and talking at the lunchroom or walking over to Tim's desk and saying hi. There's only collaboration tools like Teams and Zoom. As well, the newer employees that we're bringing in, as well as where the world is going, is towards that instant gratification. We want more now, better, faster, stronger. And the future of how we're going to interact, I believe, is going to transition more into a VR or virtual reality. I know if any of you have younger kids, I have two. I see my son walking around with those goofy goggles on, running into everything. But I fear that, I'll be that guy at my desk running into everything and bumping my head on stuff. But when you think about it, it's all about how can we collaborate, how can we integrate with one another and other companies better, faster, stronger. The next logical step is that. And those real estate markets, as well as the development of the metaverse, if you will, has already begun. And it's a very easy way for us to interact differently, in a different way. Now, that's just an assumption by me. I'm certainly not Elon Musk or any type of very important person in the technology world. But if you look at some of the stats from Gartner and IDC, right now we interact with smart devices at about 2,300 times per day today. Now, I don't know about you, but those same kids that are bumping into stuff, I tell them constantly to get off their phones. And I even catch myself, scrolling through my phones at all different times of the day. Think about that doubling in 2 years, in 3 years. I can't even imagine what that's going to be like. Now, think about our world, right, and what that is, but then think about the IT infrastructure, the components of our business that need to support that. And there's a lot there. There's a lot there to think about. Now, obviously, supply chain is an issue. Everybody's working remotely, which puts different strains on the business. The future of technology and where it's going is more, harder, faster, stronger within our data centers and within our capabilities. And as well, everyone's trying to break into it. So right now, I'm sure if any of you have recently renewed your cyber insurance premiums, you may have been told that you need something called MFA, or multi-factor authentication, to renew your premiums. What's happened is, after the pandemic, most folks were in the office. So cyber insurance companies weren't extremely worried about MFA and multi-factor authentication. They were, but they weren't. Post the pandemic, with everyone now remoting into offices, basically remoting into IT infrastructure that isn't built for people to remote into, security events have gone through the roof. It's basically, an unroped concert for bad actors to come in and do what they want. If you aren't focused on cybersecurity as your business, cyber insurance premiums are probably the first place where you're seeing kind of the impact of not investing. I've seen companies have their premiums increased by 120% last year. Now, MFA is just the first step, in my opinion. The MFA and the introduction of MFA should help eliminate a lot of bad acting, right, within our interaction with remote infrastructure. However, I think where everything is going is to more of a proof, a third-party proof that security policies, security training are in place for your business. That lends itself more towards a SOC or a different type of audit that maybe you'll need to get lower insurance premiums compared to others. Now, the reason for that is because last year there was almost $102 million in ransomware transactions per month. It's almost double what it was the year before. And in that, there were 68 different variants of ransomware introduced in 2021. 68 different types of attacks that could have happened. And they're definitely not throwing nets anymore. In some cases, they're throwing spears and really targeting what they want to accomplish, not necessarily figuring out who hasn't prepared. And in 2021, there was over 140 million attempts or attacks towards business. The fourth point is inflation. I'm sure we've all felt this in our lives when we go to the pump, but inflation is the highest that it's been since 1982. I think we'll see fluctuation in it, but who knows when it stops, right? This affects everything that we do, but it also affects tech. And the interesting thing about tech is if you look at Microsoft, for example, they're doing large increases on their subscription licensing for Office 365, for SQL licensing, for all these different components. And you might be asking yourself, well, like, why are they inflating software that they own? They're $1 billion company, $1 billion+ company. I'm sorry, but the reason is they can. And in the IT industry, in the infrastructure industry, and software industry, inflation isn't a two-way street. It goes one way. It goes up. It's just the rate at which it goes up. So what we're seeing in hardware vendors as well as software vendors who own IP, right now, everyone else is increasing prices, so why don't we? And once their price goes up, it stays there. It's just the rate of increase that will change in the future. A gallon of gas will eventually come back down. A gallon of milk will eventually come back down. The IT industry will only go up. It will never go down. And lastly, in my opinion, the most important is the workforce. It's our people. It's our retention of those people and how we hire. And technology plays a big part of that. I'm sure if any of you are growing and looking to hire, you're finding this market very challenging for many reasons. But not only do employees want to work from home, but now more than ever, the user experience and the applications that they're using and the software that they're using, and this is coming up more and more on interviews. It's about the role, sure, it's about money, but everyone wants to make sure that they're working smarter, not harder. And this type of trend, this type of investment into our IT infrastructure and our IT capability will prove to employees that we take it seriously. We take their lives seriously. We take their jobs seriously. And this will, in my opinion, determine whether we're going to be a company where people are taking off or where people are going to land in the future. So just a quick summary. Perfect storm. All these things aren't new. They're not revolutionary, but it is the first time in history that all these things are happening at the rate that they're happening at one time. And unfortunately, I don't think it's slowing down anytime soon. So the big theme that I want to get across is let's be proactive. Let's think differently about what we're doing in our business and think about how we can really make a change to maybe not what we're buying or who we're buying it from, but maybe how we're thinking about it. So as you think about supply chain, the new office, security, inflation, workforce, our people, just keep the things that we talked about in mind. And certainly along the way, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. This is all of my contact info. I'd be happy to talk to any of you. As well, reach out to Pur-Logic. They're fantastic. We love working with them. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tyler. We do actually have a couple questions.
Okay.
One question is confirming that the data is hosted in Canada.
Yes. So we have a Toronto data center and We just put out a press release, I think on Thursday, but it's been live for about 3 weeks now, and we are migrating customers to it daily. So yes, we do have a third data center in Toronto.
Awesome, thank you. And our second question is, if we have our own Microsoft license, can we use it on the hosted server?
Great question. Yeah, it's all going to depend on the license that you have. SQL licensing, yes. Office 365 licensing, no. But SQL licensing will require that you have what's called software assurance. Basically what it is, it's something that you would have paid for when you bought it, that says, yeah, I can move this to another piece of infrastructure that's not my own. And it's not uncommon to buy it, so don't immediately discount or think that you don't have it. It's good to check and see if you've purchased it. It's like a maintenance policy on SQL. But yeah, SQL licensing is certainly transferable. Office 365 licensing, unfortunately, that has to be installed on your own servers or your own infrastructure. If anyone is telling you different, they're either hosting you on Azure or they're breaking the rules. So just make sure you dive into that. Certainly licensing around backup or your own monitoring software, certainly you guys could bring that to bear and install that onto your environment in our cloud, again, because we look at this as your environment, not necessarily something we own. So yeah, really, really flexible as long as Microsoft allows us to be.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tyler. I think that was the last question we had in the chat box. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today as we explored Cloud at Work. Once again, we will be emailing you a copy of today's webinar, and please feel free to reach out to us if any of you have any further questions or if you would like to book a more in-depth demo. Thank you once again, Tyler.
Thank you so much.